Thank you for tuning in, and we're going to continue on with cutlery, the tools of the 18th century here. And this time around we're going to talk about what has become known as the Fort Meigs belt axe. Now obviously originally it was not called the Fort Meigs belt axe. That's a sort of a modernized reenactor term. It was found on the Perrysburg battlefield in the early 1900s, in the area supposedly around where the Kentucky militia was captured. Now if you go to Fort Meigs, in their museum collection you won't actually find this axe. It's not on display or anything. It was found by a private collector. Again, it is an original piece, early 1900s. Exactly when it was made we don't know, but the pattern is indicative of late 18th century, early 19th century is the approximate date on it. So some reenactors say, this axe didn't actually exist. It's sort of a modern thing that's been created, but in fact it did indeed exist. It was an original. And if you want to see the original, if you can put your hands on James Johnson's Accoutrements Book Volume 1, you can see the original black and white photograph, and it's pretty close to the reproductions that we have here today. So if you're interested in viewing the original, you can pull up his book and go ahead and dive into that. But as far as an axe today, obviously it's a very small belt axe. One misconception in the 18th century that a lot of people think today is that belt axes and whatnot were very large, robust items that people carried. There are some larger versions, but by and large they were smaller, rather petite. There's an awful lot of them that survive today, and the reason for that is you're going into the wilderness, into battle or whatever, and you have heavy weighted gear. That becomes very burdensome very fast. So we know that today. They knew that in the 18th and 19th century, so a lot of the stuff tends to be smaller and petite. And just because it's small in size, it's still a very handy belt axe. The versions shown here are patterns that we have created off of the original. Now, what we do is we buy an already cast head and reforge it and reshape it to match the original in an effort to keep the cost down. So we take the cast head, reforge it, reshape it, reheat treat it, temper it, put a good cutting bevel on it, and then fit it with a hand-hewn hickory handle. I'll go ahead and pick this up for a little scale. And the end result is something like this. So as far as a historically correct axe for the, I'd give it a date, 1770s on up into the first quarter of the 1800s, this is a good and authentic choice. Again, we can document it back to original found on the Perrysburg battlefield, and a very handy general purpose little axe. Now obviously due to its small size, you're not going to build a log cabin with this, but for light belt axe chores, dropping poles for a shelter, or processing game, it's a very effective tool. We've sold quite a few of these, and so far the feedback has been really good. Guys have said that they're very handy, practical axe to carry into the woods, very lightweight, so they're not burdensome, and a good choice for that time period indicated. So that's kind of the rundown on the Fort Meigs, or what has become known as the Fort Meigs belt axe. We hope you've enjoyed today, and thank you for tuning in. Just want to remind you, if you're enjoying the videos that we're putting out, please feel free to subscribe. We're going to continue this, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. And it's going to just be various things like this, 18th century topics, gear. I'm going to do some how-to videos. Eventually we're going to go into my shop and show you how we go about manufacturing things, blacksmithing, knife making, gunsmithing. And also, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them. I'll do my best to try and answer them. So once again, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care, and